Chikorita, the leaf Pokemon. It loves to bask in the sunlight. It uses the leaf on its head to seek out warm places. Bayleaf, the leaf Pokemon. The scent that wafts from the leaves on its neck causes anyone who smells it to become energetic. Meganium, the herb Pokemon. Anyone who stands beside it becomes refreshed, just as if they were relaxing in a sunny forest. Cyndaquil, the fire mouse Pokemon. The fire that spouts from its back burns hottest when it's angry. The flaring flames intimidate foes. Quilava, the volcano Pokemon. Before battle, it turns its back on its opponent to demonstrate how ferociously its fire blazes. Typhlosion, the volcano Pokemon. When heat from its body causes the air around it to shimmer, this is a sign that it's ready to battle. Totodile, the big jaw Pokemon. This rough critter chomps at any moving object it sees. Turning your back on it is not recommended. Croconaw, the big jaw Pokemon. The tips of its fangs are slanted backward. Once those fangs clamp down, the prey has no hope of escape. Feraligatr, the big jaw Pokemon. Although it has a massive body, its powerful hind legs enable it to move quickly even on the ground. Pidgey, the tiny bird Pokemon. It rapidly flaps its wings in the grass, stirring up a dust cloud that drives insect prey out into the open. Pidgeotto, the bird Pokemon. It slowly flies in a circular pattern, all the while keeping a sharp lookout for prey. Pidgeot, the bird Pokemon. Its outstanding vision allows it to spot a splashing Magikarp even while flying at 3,300 feet. Spearow, the tiny bird Pokemon. To protect its territory, it flies around ceaselessly, making high-pitched cries. Fearow, the beak Pokemon. It uses its long beak to attack. It has a surprisingly long reach, so it must be treated with caution. Hoot, the owl Pokemon. It begins to hoot at the same time every day. Some trainers use them in place of clocks. Noctowl, the owl Pokemon. Its extremely soft feathers make no sound in flight. It silently sneaks up on prey without being detected. Rattata, the rat Pokemon. This Pokemon's impressive vitality allows it to live anywhere. It also multiplies very quickly. God help us all. Raticate, the rat Pokemon. The webs on its hind legs enable it to cross rivers. It searches wide areas for food. Sentret, the scout Pokemon. When acting as a lookout, it warns others of danger by screeching and hitting the ground with its tail. Ferret, the long body Pokemon. It lives in narrow burrows that fit its slim body. The deeper the nests go, the more maze-like they become. Pichu, the tiny mouse Pokemon. It is unskilled at storing electric power. Any kind of shock causes it to discharge energy spontaneously. Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon. When it is angered, it immediately discharges the energy stored in the pouches in its cheeks. Raichu, the mouse Pokemon. If its electric pouches run empty, it raises its tail to gather electricity from the atmosphere. Caterpie, the worm Pokemon. It crawls into foliage where it camouflages itself among leaves that are the same color as its body. Metapod, the cocoon Pokemon. This is its pre-evolved form. At this stage, it can only harden so it remains motionless to avoid attack. Butterfree, the butterfly Pokemon. It flits from flower to flower collecting honey. It can even identify distant flowers in bloom. Weedle, the hairy bug Pokemon. The barb on the top of its head secretes a strong poison. It uses this toxic barb to protect itself. Kuna, the cocoon Pokemon. Nearly incapable of movement, it leans against stout trees while waiting for its evolution. Beedrill, the poison bee Pokemon. It uses sharp poisonous stings to defeat prey, then takes the victim back to its nest for food. Ladybug, the 5-star Pokemon. It is timid and clusters together with others. The fluid secreted by its feet indicates its location. Ledian, the 5-star Pokemon. In the daytime, when it gets warm, it curls up inside a big leaf and drifts off into a deep slumber. Spinnerack, the string spit Pokemon. If prey becomes ensnared in its nest of spun string, it waits motionlessly until it becomes dark. Ariados, the long-legged Pokemon. Rather than making a nest in one specific spot, it wanders in search of food after darkness falls. Geodude, the rock Pokemon. Proud of their sturdy bodies, they bash against each other in a contest to prove whose is harder. If you know what I mean. Graveler, the rock Pokemon. It travels by rolling on mountain paths. If it gains too much speed, it stops by running into huge rocks. Golem, the Megaton Pokemon. Its rock-like body is so durable, even high-powered dynamite blasts fail to scratch its rugged hide. Zubat, the bat Pokemon. During the day, it gathers with others and hangs from the ceilings of old buildings and caves. Golbat, the bat Pokemon. When it plunges its fangs into its prey, it instantly draws and gulps down more than 10 ounces of blood. Crobat, the bat Pokemon. As a result of its pursuit of faster yet more silent flight, a new set of wings grew on its hind legs. Cleffa, the star-shaped Pokemon. If the impact site of a meteorite is found, this Pokemon is certain to be within the immediate area. Clefairy, the fairy Pokemon. Though rarely seen, it becomes easier to spot for some reason on the night of a full moon. Clefable, the fairy Pokemon. Said to live in quiet remote mountains, this type of fairy has a strong aversion to being seen. Igglybuff, the balloon Pokemon. Instead of walking with its short legs, it moves around by bouncing on its soft, tender body. Jigglypuff, the balloon Pokemon. It rolls its cute eyes as it sings a soothing lullaby. Its gentle song puts anyone who hears it to sleep. Wigglytuff, the balloon Pokemon. The rich, fluffy fur that covers its body feels so good that anyone who feels it can't stop touching it. Togepi, the spiked ball Pokemon. It is considered to be a symbol of good luck. Its shell is said to be filled with happiness. Togetic, the happiness Pokemon. Although it does not flap its wings very much, it can stay up in the air as it tags along after its trainer. Sandshrew, the mouse Pokemon. It prefers dry, sandy places because it uses the sand to protect itself when threatened. Sandslash, the mouse Pokemon. Adept at climbing trees, it rolls into a spiny ball, then attacks its enemies from above. Ekans, the snake Pokemon. It flutters the tip of its tongue to seek out the scent of prey, then swallows the prey whole. Arbok, the cobra Pokemon. To intimidate foes, it spreads its chest wide and makes eerie sounds by expelling air from its mouth. Dunsparce, the land snake Pokemon. It hides deep inside caves where no light ever reaches it and remains virtually motionless there. Mareep, the wool Pokemon. It stores lots of air in its soft fur, allowing it to stay cool in summer and warm in winter. Fluffy, the wool Pokemon. Because of its rubbery, electricity-resistant skin, it can store lots of electricity in its fur. Ampharos, the light Pokemon. When it gets dark, the light from its bright, shiny tail can be seen far away on the ocean's surface. Wooper, the water fish Pokemon. A mucous membrane covers its body. Touching it barehanded will cause a shooting pain. Quagsire, the water fish Pokemon. Its body is always slimy. It often bangs its head on the river bottom as it swims, but it seems not to care. Ghastly, the gas Pokemon. It wraps its opponent in its gas-like body, slowly weakening its prey by poisoning it through the skin. Haunter, the gas Pokemon. It hides in the dark, planning to take the life of the next living thing that wanders close by. Gengar, the shadow Pokemon. Hiding in people's shadows at night, it absorbs their heat. The chill it causes makes the victims shake. Unknown, the symbol Pokemon. Because different types of Unknown exist, it is said that they have a variety of abilities. Onyx, the rock snake Pokemon. As it digs through the ground, it absorbs many hard objects. This is what makes its body so solid. If you know what I mean. Steelix, the Iron Snake Pokemon. The many small metal particles that cover this Pokemon's body reflect bright light well. Bellsprout, the Flower Pokemon. If it notices anything that moves, it immediately flings its vine at the object. Weepinbell, the Flycatcher Pokemon. When it's hungry, it swings its razor-sharp leaves, slicing up any unlucky object nearby for food. Victreebel, the Flycatcher Pokemon. Once ingested into this Pokemon's body, even the hardest object will melt into nothing. Hoppip, the Cottonweed Pokemon. It can be carried away on even the gentlest breeze. It may even float all the way to the next town. Skiploom, the Cottonweed Pokemon. As soon as it rains, it closes its flower and hides in the shade of a tree to avoid getting wet. Jumpluff, the Cottonweed Pokemon. Even in the fiercest wind, it can control its fluff to make its way to any place in the world at once. Paris, the Mushroom Pokemon. The Tochikaso growing on this Pokemon's back orders it to extract juice from tree trunks. Parasect, the Mushroom Pokemon. When nothing's left to extract from the bug, the mushrooms on its back leave spores on the bug's egg. Poliwag, the Tadpole Pokemon. The swell on its belly is its inside showing through the skin. It looks clearer after it eats. Poliwhirl, the Tadpole Pokemon. Though it is skilled at walking, it prefers to live underwater where there is less danger. Poliwrath, the Tadpole Pokemon. It can use its well-developed arms and legs to run on the surface of the water for a split second. Politoed, the Frog Pokemon. When it expands its throat to croak out a tune, nearby Poliwag and Poliwhirl gather immediately. Magikarp, the Fish Pokemon. This weak and pathetic Pokemon gets easily pushed along rivers when there are strong currents. Gyarados, the Atrocious Pokemon. It appears whenever there is world conflict, burning down any place it travels through. Goldeen, the Goldfish Pokemon. During spawning season, they swim gracefully in the water searching for their perfect mate. Seeking, the Goldfish Pokemon. When autumn comes, the males patrol the area around their nests in order to protect their offspring. Slowpoke, the Dopey Pokemon. It is always so absent-minded that it won't react even if its flavorful tail is bitten. Slowbro, the Hermit Crab Pokemon. An attached shoulder won't let go because of the tasty flavour that oozes out of its tail. Slowking, the Royal Pokemon. Every time it yawns, Shelter injects more poison into it. The poison makes it more intelligent. Oddish, the Weed Pokemon. During the day, it stays in the cold underground to avoid the sun. It grows by bathing in moonlight. Gloom, the Weed Pokemon. The smell from its drool-like syrup and the pollen on its petals is so bad, it may make opponents faint. Vileplume, the Flower Pokemon. By shaking its big petals, it scatters toxic pollen into the air, turning the air yellow. Blossom, the Flower Pokemon. When these dance together, their petals rub against each other, making pretty relaxing sounds. Drowsy, the Hypnosis Pokemon. When it twitches its nose, it can tell where someone is sleeping and what that person is dreaming about. Hypno, the Hypnosis Pokemon. The longer it swings its pendulum, the longer the effects of its hypnosis last. Abra, the Psy Pokemon. It hypnotizes itself so it can teleport away when it senses danger, even if it's asleep. Kadabra, the Psy Pokemon. When it closes its eyes, twice as many alpha particles come out of the surface of its body. Alakazam, the Psy Pokemon. It has an IQ of 5,000. It calculates many things in order to gain the edge in every battle. Ditto, the Transform Pokemon. When it encounters another Ditto, it will move faster than normal to duplicate that opponent exactly. Pineco, the Bagworm Pokemon. It spits out a fluid that it uses to glue tree bark to its body. The fluid hardens when it touches air. Forretress, the bagworm Pokemon. Usually found hanging onto a fat tree trunk. It shoots out bits of its shell when it sees action. Nidoran female, the poison pin Pokemon. Small and very docile, it protects itself with small poisonous horn when attacked. Nidorina, the poison pin Pokemon. It has a docile nature. If it is threatened with attack, it raises the barbs that are all over its body. Nidoqueen, the drill Pokemon. The hard scales that cover its strong body serve as excellent protection from any attack. Nidoran male, the poison pin Pokemon. It constantly moves its large ears in many directions in order to detect danger right away. Nidorino, the poison pin Pokemon. It is easily agitated and uses its horn for offense as soon as it notices an attacker. Nidoking, the drill Pokemon. It uses its thick arms, legs, and tail to attack forcefully. Melee combat is its specialty. Yanma, the clear wing Pokemon. It can see in all directions without moving its big eyes, helping it spot attackers and food right away. Sunkern, the seed Pokemon. It is very weak. Its only means of defense is to shake its leaves desperately at its attacker. Sunflora, the sun Pokemon. As the hot season approaches, the petals on this Pokemon's face become more vivid and lively. Execute, the egg Pokemon. If even one is separated from the group, the energy bond between the six will make them rejoin instantly. Exeggutor, the coconut Pokemon. Living in a good environment makes it grow lots of heads. A head that drops off becomes an Execute. Sudowoodo, the imitation Pokemon. If a tree branch shakes when there is no wind, it's a Sudowoodo, not a tree. It hides from the rain. Wobbuffet, the patient Pokemon. In order to conceal its black tail, it lives in a dark cave and only moves about at night. Venonat, the insect Pokemon. The small bugs it eats appear only at night, so it sleeps in a hole in a tree until night falls. Venomoth, the poison moth Pokemon. The scales it scatters will paralyze anyone who touches them, making that person unable to stand. Scyther, the mantis Pokemon. It's very proud of its speed. It moves so fast that its opponent does not even know what knocked it down. Scizor, the scissors Pokemon. This Pokemon's pinches, which contain steel, can crush any hard object it gets a hold of into bits. Pinsir, the stag beetle Pokemon. When the temperature drops at night, it sleeps on treetops or among roots where it is well hidden. Heracross, the single horn Pokemon. With its Herculean powers, it can easily throw around an object that is 100 times its own weight. Coughing, the poison gas Pokemon. If one gets close enough to it when it expels poisonous gas, the gas swelling inside it can be seen. Wheezing, the poison gas Pokemon. When it inhales poisonous gases from garbage, its body expands and its insides smell much worse. Grimer, the sludge Pokemon. When two of these Pokemon's bodies are combined together, new poisons are created. Muck, the sludge Pokemon. As it moves, a very strong poison leaks from it, making the ground there barren for 3 years. Magnemite, the magnet Pokemon. The electricity emitted by the units on each side of its body cause it to become a strong magnet. Magneton, the magnet Pokemon. When many Magneton gather together, the resulting magnetic storm disrupts radio waves. Voltorb, the bull Pokemon. During the study of this Pokemon, it was discovered that its components are not found in nature. Electrode, the ball Pokemon. The more energy it charges up, the faster it gets, but this also makes it more likely to explode. Apom, the long-tail Pokemon. It uses its tail to hang onto tree branches. It uses its momentum to swing from one branch to another. Snubbull, the fairy Pokemon. In truth, it is a cowardly Pokemon. It growls eagerly in order to hide its fear from its opponent. Granbull, the fairy Pokemon. It can make most any Pokemon run away simply by opening its mouth wide to reveal its big fangs. Vulpix, the fox Pokemon. As its body grows larger, its 6 warm tails become more beautiful with a more luxurious coat of fur. Ninetales, the fox Pokemon. It is said to live 1,000 years, and each of its tails is loaded with supernatural powers. Growlithe, the puppy Pokemon. It controls a big territory. If it detects an unknown smell, it roars loudly to force out the intruder. Arcanine, the legendary Pokemon. An ancient picture scroll shows that people were attracted to its movement as it ran through the prairies. Stantler, the big horn Pokemon. The round balls found on the fallen antlers can be ground into a powder that aids in sleeping. Marill, the Aquamouse Pokemon. The fur on its body naturally repels water. It can stay dry even when it plays in the water. Azumarill, the Aqua Rabbit Pokemon. The bubble-like pattern on its stomach helps it camouflage itself when it's in the water. Diglett, the mole Pokemon. It digs underground and chews on tree roots, sticking its head out only when the sun isn't bright. Dugtrio, the mole Pokemon. These Diglett triplets dig over 60 miles below sea level. No one knows what it's like underground. Mankey, the pig monkey Pokemon. It lives in groups in the treetops. If it loses sight of its group, it becomes infuriated by its loneliness. Primeape, the pig monkey Pokemon. It will beat up anyone who makes it mad, even if it has to chase them until the end of the world. Meowth, the scratch cat Pokemon. It loves things that sparkle. When it sees a shiny object, the gold coin on its head shines too. Persian, the classy cat Pokemon. Behind its lithe, elegant appearance lies a barbaric side. It will tear apart its prey on a mere whim. Psyduck, the duck Pokemon. The only time it can use its psychic power is when its sleeping brain cells happen to wake. Golduck, the duck Pokemon. It swims gracefully along on the quiet, slow-moving rivers and lakes of which it is so fond. Machop, the superpower Pokemon. It trains by lifting rocks in the mountains. It can even pick up a graveler with ease. Machoke, the superpower Pokemon. This tough Pokemon always stays in the zone. Its muscles become thicker after every battle. Machamp, the superpower Pokemon. With 4 arms that react more quickly than it can think, it can execute many punches at once. Tyrogue, the Scuffle Pokemon. To brush up on its fighting skills, it will challenge anyone. It has a very strong competitive spirit. Hitmonlee, the kicking Pokemon. It is also called the Kickmaster. It uses its elastic legs to execute every known kick. Hitmonchan, the punching Pokemon. To increase the strength of all of its punch moves, it spins its arms just before making contact. Hitmontop, the handstand Pokemon. After doing a handstand to throw off the opponent's timing, it presents its fancy kick moves. Girafarig, the long neck Pokemon. When it's in danger, its tail uses some sort of mysterious powers to drive the enemy away. Tauros, the wild bull Pokemon. These violent Pokemon fight with other members of their herd in order to prove their strength. Miltank, the milk cow Pokemon. In order to milk a Miltank, one must have a knack for rhythmically pulling up and down on its udders. Magby, the live coal Pokemon. It naturally spits an 1100 degree flame. It is said when many appear, it heralds a volcanic eruption. Magmar, the Spitfire Pokemon. It moves more frequently in hot areas. It can heal itself by dipping its wound into lava. Smoochum, the Kiss Pokemon. The sensitivity of its lifts develops most quickly. It uses them to try and identify unknown objects. Jinx, the human-shaped Pokemon. It has several different cry patterns, each of which seems to have its own meaning. Elekid, the electric Pokemon. It loves violent thunder. the space between its horns flickers bluish-white when it is charging energy. Electabuzz, the electric Pokemon. When two Electabuzz touch, they control the electric currents to communicate their feelings. Mr. Mime, the barrier Pokemon. It uses the mysterious power it has in its fingers to solidify air into an invisible wall. Smeargle, the painter Pokemon. The color of the mysterious fluid secreted from its tail is predetermined for each Smeargle. Farfetch'd, the wild duck Pokemon. In order to prevent their extinction, more people have made an effort to breed these Pokemon. Natu, the little bird Pokemon. It is extremely good at climbing tree trunks and likes to eat the new sprouts on the trees. Xatu, the mystic Pokemon. Once it begins to meditate at sunrise, the entire day will pass before it will move again. Quillfish, the balloon Pokemon. When faced with a larger opponent, it swallows as much water as it can to match the opponent's size. Tentacle, the jellyfish Pokemon. As it floats along in the waves, it uses its toxic feelers to stab anything it touches. Tentacruel, the jellyfish Pokemon. When its 80 feelers absorb water, it stretches to become like a net to entangle its prey. Krabby, the river crab Pokemon. If it is unable to find food, it will absorb nutrients by swallowing a mouthful of sand. Kingler, the pincer Pokemon. Its oversized claw is very powerful, but when it's not in battle, the claw just gets in the way. Shuckle, the mole Pokemon. The fluid secreted by its toes carves holes in rocks for nesting and can be mixed with berries to make a drink. Staryu, the star-shaped Pokemon. When the stars twinkle at night, it floats up from the sea floor and its body's center core flickers. Starmie, the mysterious Pokemon. It is said that it uses the 7-colored core of its body to send electric waves into outer space. Shelder, the bivalve Pokemon. Clamping onto an opponent reveals its vulnerable parts, so it only uses this move as a last resort. Cloyster, the bivalve Pokemon. Even a missile can't break the spikes it uses to stab opponents. They're even harder than its shell. Corsola, the coral Pokemon. The points on its head absorb nutrients from clean water. They cannot survive in polluted water. Remoraid, the jet Pokemon. To escape from an attacker, it may shoot water out of its mouth, then use that force to swim backward. Octillery, the jet Pokemon. Its instinct is to bury itself in holes. It often steals the nesting holes of others to sleep in them. What a dick. Chinchou, the angler Pokemon. Its antennae, which evolved from a fin, have both positive and negative charges flowing through them. Lantern, the light Pokemon. This Pokemon uses the bright part of its body, which changed from a dorsal fin, to lure prey. Seal, the sea lion Pokemon. The light blue fur that covers it keeps it protected against the cold. It loves iceberg-filled oceans. Dugong, the sea lion Pokemon. It sleeps under shallow ocean waters during the day, then looks for food at night when it's cold. Lickitung, the licking Pokemon. It has a tongue that is over 6 foot 6 inches long. It uses this long tongue to lick its body clean, among other things. Tangela, the vine Pokemon. During battle, it constantly moves the vines that cover its body in order to annoy its opponent. Eevee, the evolution Pokemon. Its ability to evolve into many forms allows it to adapt smoothly and perfectly to any environment. Vaporeon, the bubble jet Pokemon. As it uses the fins on the tip of its tail to swim, it blends with the water perfectly. Jolteon, the lightning Pokemon. The negatively charged ions generated in its fur create constant sparking noise. Flareon, the flame Pokemon. Once it has stored up enough heat, this Pokemon's body temperature can reach up to 1700 degrees. Espeon, the Sun Pokemon. The tip of its forked tail quivers when it is predicting its opponent's next move. Umbreon, the Moonlight Pokemon. On the night of a full moon, or when it gets excited, the ring patterns on its body glow yellow. Horsey, the Dragon Pokemon. When they're in a safe location, they can be seen playfully tangling their tails together. Seadra, the Dragon Pokemon. The male raises the young. If it is approached, it uses its toxic spikes to fend off the intruder. Kingdra, the Dragon Pokemon. It stores energy by sleeping at underwater depths at which no other life forms can survive. Gligar, the Fly Scorpio Pokemon. It builds its nest on a steep cliff. When it is done gliding, it hops along the ground back to its nest. Delibird, the Delivery Pokemon. It always carries its food with it wherever it goes. If attacked, it throws its food at the opponent. Swinub, the Pig Pokemon. It uses the tip of its nose to dig for food. Its nose is so tough that even frozen ground poses no problem. Piloswine, the Swine Pokemon. Although its legs are short, its rugged hooves prevent it from slipping even on icy ground. Teddiursa, the Little Bear Pokemon. It always licks honey. Its palms taste sweet because of all the honey it's absorbed. Ursaring, the Hibernant Pokemon. Although it has a large body, it is quite skilled at climbing trees. It eats and sleeps in the treetops. Phanpy, the Long-Nosed Pokemon. During the deserted morning hours, it comes ashore where it deftly uses its trunk to take a shower. Donphan, the Armor Pokemon. Because this Pokemon's skin is so tough, a normal attack won't even leave a scratch on it. Mantine, the Kite Pokemon. It swims along freely, eating the things that swim into its mouth. Its whole body is very coarse. Skarmory, the Armor Bird Pokemon. The feathers that it sheds are very sharp. It is said that people once used the feathers as swords. Doduo, the Twin Bird Pokemon. It lives on a grassy plain where it can see a long way. If it sees an enemy, it runs away at 60 miles per hour. Dodrio, the Triple Bird Pokemon. An enemy that takes its eye off any of the three heads, even for a second, will get pecked severely. Ponyta, the Fire Horse Pokemon. Training by jumping over grass that grows longer every day has made it a world-class jumper. Rapidash, the Fire Horse Pokemon. It just loves to gallop. The faster it goes, the longer the swaying flames of its mane will become. Cubone, the Lonely Pokemon. It lost its mother after its birth. It wears its mother's skull, never revealing its true face. Marowak, the Bonekeeper Pokemon. Somewhere in the world is a cemetery just for Marowak. It gets its bones from those graves. Kangaskhan, the Parent Pokemon. To avoid crushing the baby it carries in its pouch, it always sleeps standing up. Rhyhorn, the Spikes Pokemon. It can only remember one thing at a time. Once it starts rushing, it forgets why it started. Rhydon, the Drill Pokemon. By lightly spinning its drill-like horn, it can easily shatter even a diamond in the rough. Murkrow, the Darkness Pokemon. It hides any shiny object it finds in a secret location. Murkrow and Meowth loot one another's stashes. Houndour, the Dark Pokemon. Around dawn, its ominous howl echoes through the area to announce that this is its territory. Houndoom, the Dark Pokemon. The pungent-smelling flame that shoots from its mouth results from toxins burning in its body. Slugma, the Lava Pokemon. These group together in areas that are hotter than normal. If it cools off, its skin hardens. Magcargo, the Lava Pokemon. Its body is as hot as lava and is always billowing. Flames will occasionally burst from its shell. Sneasel, the Sharp Claw Pokemon. This cunning Pokemon hides under the cover of darkness, waiting to attack its prey. Misdreavus, the Screech Pokemon. It loves to watch people it's scared. It frightens them by screaming loudly or appearing suddenly. Porygon, the Virtual Pokemon. An artificial Pokemon created due to extensive research, it can only perform what it's in its program. Porygon 2, the Virtual Pokemon. This man-made Pokemon evolved from the latest technology. It may have unprogrammed reactions. Chansey, the Egg Pokemon. People try to catch it for its extremely nutritious eggs, but it can rarely be found. Blissey, the Happiness Pokemon. Biting into one of the delicious eggs that Blissey provides will make everyone around smile with joy. Lapras, the Transport Pokemon. This gentle Pokemon loves to give people rides and provides a very comfortable way to get around. Omanyte, the Spiral Pokemon. In prehistoric times, it swam on the seafloor eating plankton. Its fossils are sometimes found. Omastar, the Spiral Pokemon. Its heavy shell allowed it to reach only nearby food. This could be the reason it is extinct. Kabuto, the Shellfish Pokemon. 300 million years ago, it hid on the sea floor. It also has eyes on its back that glow. Kabutops, the Shellfish Pokemon. It was able to swim quickly through the water by compactly folding up its razor-sharp sickles. Aerodactyl, the Fossil Pokemon. In prehistoric times, this Pokemon flew freely and fearlessly through the skies. Snorlax, the Sleeping Pokemon. This Pokemon's stomach is so strong, even eating moldy or rotten food will not affect it. Bulbasaur, the Seed Pokemon. While it is young, it uses the nutrients that are stored in the seeds on its back in order to grow. Ivysaur, the Seed Pokemon. The bulb on its back grows as it absorbs nutrients. The bulb gives off a pleasant aroma when it blooms. Venusaur, the Seed Pokemon. As it warms itself and absorbs the sunlight, its flower petals release a pleasant fragrance. Charmander, the Lizard Pokemon. If it's healthy, the flame on the tip of its tail will burn vigorously, even if it gets a bit wet. Charmeleon, the Flame Pokemon. If it becomes agitated during battle, it spouts intense flames, incinerating its surroundings. Charizard, the Flame Pokemon. It uses its wings to fly high. The temperature of its fire increases as it gains experience in battle. Squirtle, the Tiny Turtle Pokemon. When it feels threatened, it draws its legs inside its shell and sprays water from its mouth. Wartortle, the Turtle Pokemon. Its long furry tail is a symbol of longevity, making it quite unpopular among older people. Blastoise, the Shellfish Pokemon. It firmly plants its feet on the ground before shooting water from the jets on its back. Articuno, the Freeze Pokemon. Legendary bird Pokemon. As it flies through the sky, it cools the air, causing snow to fall. Zapdos, the Electric Pokemon. Legendary bird Pokemon. They say lightning caused by the flapping of its wings causes summer storms. Moltres, the Flame Pokemon. Legendary bird Pokemon. It is said to migrate from the south along with the spring. Raikou, the Thunder Pokemon. This rough Pokemon stores energy inside its body, then sweeps across the land shooting off electricity. Entei, the Volcano Pokemon. This brawny Pokemon courses around the earth, spouting flames hotter than a volcano's magma. Suicune, the Aurora Pokemon. This divine Pokemon blows around the world, always in search of a pure reservoir. Dratini, the Dragon Pokemon. It sheds many layers of its skin as it grows larger. During this process, it is protected by a rapid waterfall. Dragonair, the Dragon Pokemon. It is called the Divine Pokemon. When its entire body brightens slightly, the weather changes. Dragonite, the Dragon Pokemon. It is said that somewhere in the ocean lies an island where only these gather. Only they live there. Larvitar, the rock skin Pokemon. Born deep underground, this Pokemon becomes a pupa after eating enough dirt to make a mountain. Pupitar, the hard shell Pokemon. It will not stay still even while it's a pupa. It already has arms and legs under its solid shell. Tyranitar, the armor Pokemon. In just one of its mighty hands, it has the power to make the ground shake and mountains crumble. Lugia, the diving Pokemon. It has an incredible ability to calm raging storms. It is said that Lugia appears when storms start. Ho-Oh, the rainbow Pokemon. It will reveal itself before a pure-hearted trainer by shining its bright rainbow-colored wings. Mewtwo, the genetic Pokemon. Sent to rest quietly in an undiscovered cave, this Pokemon was created solely for battling. Mew, the new species Pokemon. Because it can learn any move, some people began research to see if it is the ancestor of all Pokemon. Celebi, the time travel Pokemon. Revered as a guardian of the forest, Celebi appears wherever beautiful forests exist.